want to play some music. Yeah. Um, you guys want to hear some music? Well, no one's here yet, so I can decide for you. What am I play? Um, I don't know. Like, yeah, why not? Radio. Radio? How's that work? Let me see how this works. Okay, it plays the videos. Okay, okay. Cool. Anywho, so I'm here, guys, and this is another Ask Me Anything format. I haven't done one in 3 days because I had focused topics, which went, eh, they were okay. But switching back to Ask Me Anything format for right now. Uh, and again, I'm doing these earlier than I used to do because I'm trying to get to sleep a little bit earlier now. And might grab something to eat before I go to bed too. Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Cause I want, I want something good to eat, but I'm just gonna make something that's readily available. Make some pancit canton or fake. Well, my my pseudo pancit. Pancit canton is like the Philippine noodle dish. Even though it's called Canton, which means from the province of Canton in China, but that might be where the dish originally arrived. I mean, derived. But I think I'm gonna fix that. Uh, what's up to X-Ray Briam? So, and what's up to everyone else coming into the chat room? So this is Ask Me Anything format, so you can ask me anything. Just make sure it's family friendly. Otherwise, ask away. Just make sure it's family friendly. But this is something I do, well, I attempt to do every week. My Ask Me Anything format. Last week I did several of them just to see how that would go. Just had a string of Ask Me Anything format live streams. So I'm doing that again today. So you could just literally ask me questions as long as it's family friendly. Let me go ahead and set my chat filter here to get everything. And shoot, what is this? Um, yeah, this changed. I don't have the goals thing here, or it's been moved. Let me see. What is this? No. Hmm. Yeah, I don't see it. Oh, because I wanted to set the gift goal. How am I doing? I'm all right. So just tired and want something. I want something good to eat. Pause. I said something, not someone. Something. I'm a dude. I don't need to get ready for Valentine's Day. That's a girl holiday. Um, the holidays I'm excited for is like uh, Halloween, and yeah, I guess and thanks. Well, and Christmas. You have a girl to be your Valentine. Well, that's good for you. You sound young. I don't even know what that question is, so I'm not gonna even bother repeating that. Um, um, I don't care about. I'm gonna tell you right now because some of you sound like you're like Gen Z or maybe even Gen Alpha. I don't give a shit about Gen Z terms or Gen Alpha terms. I really don't. I could give a shit. I know what brain rot is. I just don't give a fuck because you didn't pose that question in a grammatical format. And I'm a very pedantic person. If you don't say something in a coherent way, I'm not going to respond. And Roblox is something my niece plays. I could care less about Roblox, the the computer game, much less the movie that came out last year. What's up, Tracy? Uh, Shadow. I'm gonna have to put on my reading glasses. SRBLX says, I mean, I'm Gen Z, Gen Alpha, but I'm honestly one of the more mature ones. And that remains to be seen. I might have to turn down this music so I don't get copyrighted. TB7995, what's up, bro? Turn this down a bit so I don't get copyrighted. That's my jam, though. There were some people who were mad at this video because he was showing black Egyptians, which is, yeah, historically inaccurate, but the video was still dope. Tree says Roblox is actually a bad website for kids. First first day, removed the players that was trying to get the predators out instead of Roblox. Don't give a. Eh. Again, I'm not getting into all of that. Um, for one, like I look, this is why people are saying China has the right is making the right steps when it comes to stuff like video games and all this sort of shit. Because parents can't do the right fucking thing and will have to let their kids do any fucking thing. Part, pardon my French, but China will restrict how long kids can be on can be playing video games or watching uh, d- digital devices and stuff because obviously the parents won't do it for them. And that's probably because a lot of their parents have to work the dreaded 996 work schedule in China. What is the 996 shift, you ask? That is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That is the typical work shift in China, and it's called the 996 shift. So with that sort of shift, they're probably not there to monitor their children from doing dumb shit. So Chinese government has to step in and play daddy for these you know for these absentee parents. We need to do this. I look. I'm of a divided mind because I am someone who values sort of classical liberal libertarian type virtues, like personal autonomy, including how you raise your children. But when it affects society as a whole, when society as a whole is becoming dumber, then it becomes a problem. Um, all I can say is when I have my kid, like they will be in front of a family computer in the living room, so we can see what they're doing, and they will not have their own cell phone until they're like 16. I know some people criticize me. Well, you and your hypothetical kids. I like, yeah, me and my hypothetical kids, and the fact that I have a psychology degree, so I kind of know what digital devices do to children's brains. Uh, Here's the cliff notes. It gives them attentional problems and makes them, less educable. Oop, darn it. My water. Uh, Shadow says, all right, I gotta go give my cat some company. Bye. All right. Um, Hardaway to Sprite says, how old are you? Old enough that I don't need to answer that. Tracy says Roblox is kind of a good website. I don't know why they even remove the chat for no damn reason. It's not David. It's a safety coworker. I don't know what you're talking about. That went over here. That's the reason why Roblox is not a good website. I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, I never played it. My niece plays it. I don't know anything about it other than the the bad graphics, the little blocky graphics that looks horrible. Looks like the Roblox graphics looks like CGI from like the late '90s, early 2000s. So that's the extent of my knowledge of Roblox. And then the janky ass movie that made a lot of money last year. That is the extent of what I know about it. I'm not a gamer, so I think video games are a waste of time for adults. But I don't knock it because I do stuff that other adults would knock as well, like collecting vintage toys and memorabilia from the 80s or reading comics. Appreciate the gift. Um, let's see where that came. Secret hacker. Thank you for that. J Dizzle says robot. Who cares about that? Let's talk football. Oh, you're gonna be disappointed in me. Yeah, you were on my live stream a few days ago when I was talking about I don't watch Super Bowl and that's perfectly okay, and why certain people like me don't watch Super Bowl or football games or competitive sports. I did a whole live stream about that, so you're gonna be a little bit disappointed with me on that. Now, having said that, I did say I support sports. I just don't watch it on TV because I find it boring, and I don't feel any motivation when a team wins. Um, like I said, I would be I would be the most exuberant sports fan that have ever lived if I got a paycheck when they won. If the Baltimore Ravens sent out a check to all of their fans every time they won, I would be an ecstatic, exuberant fan. But until and only until that happens, I will not be watching. Hey, Mrs. Contrarian. That is the wifey on here, guys. Just in case people don't think she exists. She pops up every once in a while just to prove that, uh, she exists. Jay does say you will be broke. Oh, if I would be broke if I was waiting for the Baltimore Ravens to win. When you say that about the Cowboy fans, though, uh, I'm just saying. Um, but nah, I mean, I don't know how frequently the Ravens lose or win. I just hear like my mom watches them religiously. I hear her shouting for them. And like I also stated, I actually do have a family member who plays in the NFL, but he doesn't play for the Ravens. He is from Baltimore. He's actually from right around here where I live currently, but he plays for the Buffalo Bills. So, um, oh well. Marty Jr. says it's funny you mentioned the wife. No one else sees her. I didn't say she's in the room with me. I said she's the moderator. Mrs. Contrarian 11 is my moderator and and administrator of this channel. So you don't have to see her. She works in the background. Unlike a lot of people who put their girlfriends and wives on the screen to commoditize their appearance because that's the only way they can get people to watch them because they're so fucking boring on their own and can't carry a conversation. And I won't mention any of them, but they're just I'll say they're YouTubers in Thailand. Yeah, you thought I was gonna say someone. I'm not gonna say anyone. Not today anyway. But yeah, there's some passport bros slash YouTubers in Thailand who really are quite boring on their own, so they keep their their girlfriends on screen with them who are former sex workers. I'm not talking about the AI moderation, dumbass. You got one more time and I'm kicking you off the channel. Or she will. You're too fucking retarded to see up where it said Mrs. Contrarian, dumbass. So you came to the wrong YouTuber if you think I'm going to be polite, because I'll call you a little faggot retarded ass exactly what it is. Get the fuck off my channel, you little Gen Z faggot. I don't like you people. J just says they are okay. I lived in Baltimore. I liked it. Like I rooted for them when they first came out. Like what was that? 2000, 2001. Like like the whole state was just the whole state was just in taking a W that year. Like the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Um, the Maryland. This was like 2001. I think they won right the Super Bowl. What did he say? Easy Jason said, "Get his ass." Oh yeah, I'm frying him, son. Definitely frying him. Sorry, the Streamlabs timed you out, but I think it just timed you out for a second. Apparently, so so yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I did root for them when they first like. I think they came out. When did they come out? Like 99, 2000, 98. I can't remember. It was like late 90s when Ravens came out, right? And then like 2 years later, they won the Super Bowl. So they was like riding, riding pretty high right there. Pause. And like I said, it was their winning was like my overall affinity for everything that was going on at the time. Like I said, the Maryland had made it through the Final Four and then lost to Duke, unfortunately, in 2001. But in 2002, they went back and beat them, and that's when we won the 2002 NCAA championships. And it was like, yo, we were just riding high, like between the football, I mean, between the NFL, then the University of Maryland, both in the football and the basketball, because their football team went to a bowl. They didn't go to the Rose Bowl, which is like the biggest one, I think. They went to I think they went to the Orange Bowl, which is still a pretty significant bowl for for the uh, for the NCAA, right? So I think they went to the Orange Bowl. I believe they won. Then like I said, you had the Ravens won, then the basketball team won. So that 2001, 2002, that was my era. That's when I was like actually watching sports, but that was also watching it with friends who were big sports fans. Marty, shut the fuck up, faggot. Name calling, tisk tisk, no friendly banter. You're talking to someone who's Gen X. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. My generation thinks all you motherfuckers are soft. So we don't like boomers either. We don't like their old wrinkled asses, and we don't like y'all young soft asses. So Gen X don't give a fuck. You need to. You probably should watch my last live stream about Zennials, people born between 1977 and 1983. We're the last era of Gen X, and like Gen X, we don't give a shit. we were raised in actual hard times, and we pretty much raised ourselves, and we didn't care about being politically incorrect or saying, terms that would hurt your feelings. Fuck your feelings. Fuck you, Marty Jr. Go suck a dick. Oh, J Dizzle, you're cool. That's just my moderator, my AI, not my wife. Streamlabs. Streamlabs is the AI cloud bot. J Dizzle, I love Ray Lewis, Shrug Reed, Batman. Yeah, and what's the dude that has the podcast now? That got caught on Instagram fucking someone. um, what's his country ass name? Uh, but yeah, he was one of the Ravens and all of that. But and Ray Lewis is cool, even though he's a murderer. But he's out. Moira June says, "Well, have a great evening. There's an uncalculated Rubicon in your judgment. There's an uncalculated dick in your mouth, Marty Jr. There's an uncalculated dick in your mouth, swirling left and right. Why don't you take care of that? Go take care of that for the rest of your evening. When it explodes, make sure it goes down so you can get your vitamins and minerals." Juice Dope 2669 says time goes by so fast. He said, "Are the boomers soft?" No, the boomers aren't soft. They're just entitled as shit. They're entitled because they grew up during an economic boom that we have never had in America in the past and never have had in the future either. And they grew up in a time where they took for granted all the things that came out of the economic boom and deprived the younger generations of the very things that they enjoyed. Me with Without irony in saying you guys need to do better and pull yourself up from your bootstraps like we did. So that's why we don't fuck with boomers. Gen X don't fuck with boomers. We Before they made fun of millennials, before they made fun of Gen Z, they were on our asses. Pause. But they used to give us a hard time before they gave millennials and Gen Z a hard time. Matter of fact, they can't even distinguish us from millennials and Gen Z. My father calls me a millennial. I'm like, I'm no fucking millennial. Was born in the late 70s. How the fuck am I a millennial? Jay Dizzle says, what a good time that was. Yeah, man. So you know the era, like that whole 2001, 2002 era, like Maryland was doing this thing. Like I said, the flagship campus, the University of Maryland, and the Ravens, the Orioles, not so much, but I still love the Orioles anyway. But yeah, they weren't really popping. Now in the 90s, the Orioles were popping, but they kept getting shut down by the Yankees. But that's a good thing because the Yankees were at the top of their game in the 90s, and the fact that the Orioles kept going to the finals with them, it's pretty good stuff. But they can never get past the Yankees back in the 90s, unfortunately. Charles says, glad I could catch you live. Yeah, appreciate it, man. I'm glad you're back once again. Juice still says, hey, you don't know Diddy. He said back when eggs and milk costed $1. Uh, well, I wouldn't know because I didn't have to buy it back then, but I guess it was cheap. I'll tell you what was cheap though, for real though. I remember when Taco Bell the crunchy tacos were 29 cents when I was a kid. I remember that, and an action figure only cost like $2.99. Even by the time I was like 12, 13, an action figure was still only like $5. Now an action figure costs like $25. But I don't. Sorry, I wouldn't know what eggs and milks cost because I was like literally a tiny. I was a little kid then. But yeah, I'm probably sure it was that cheap or somewhere near. Now to get now you buy eggs, they, you stunting now, and in the economy now you stunting if you buying eggs. They's like okay, oh you buying a whole carton of eggs? Okay, I see you with your bad self, big baller, shot caller. Got the eggs. Oh, and you buying some whole milk? And you buying some whole milk? Oh, now you okay? Now you just being fancy. You being fancy now. You get buying whole eggs and a carton of egg. You buying a carton of eggs and whole milk. You must got money. Would you But you got oil on your land? Calvin says questions. Just ask. You don't have to raise your hand and say questions. Just ask what you got to ask. As long as it's family friendly. Charles says if you buy a property today and build another structure on the land, building commissioner would tear it down and fine you because you didn't have a licensed construction team. Yeah, they make so many zoning restrictions and other sorts of impediments to building homes, and it's largely because of these boomers have put in place laws that keep their properties high value while denying younger people the opportunity to own their own property. So most younger people are priced out of owning property. Meanwhile, these boomers and the silent generation bought like their home after one paycheck at Walmart. Well, Walmart didn't exist back then, but you get what I'm saying. Like they got one check at the they came home from like they graduated from college. I mean, not college. Graduated from high school like at the age 18. Got one paycheck from the little factory where they were working at. The factory that employed half the whole town. Next thing you know, they got a small house with a white picket fence and a dog and a car. Talking about why can't you do what we did? Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't live in a time where a house costs like $100, right? So, and then on top of that, then you put all these laws, zoning restrictions, and redlining, and all this other sort of stuff to keep other people from owning homes to make sure that your property remains in high value, right? And then complain about these young people don't want to own homes and buy cars. They just want avocado toast. Like shut the fuck up. Like yeah, maybe if you didn't put in laws to make it hard for these people to buy a first time home, like you want to reduce homelessness, you want to get more people to be more patriotic and to feel like they have a stake in their country, make it easier for them to own homes. It shouldn't be that the only people buying homes are foreign investors or private equity firms. You know what I'm saying? Calvin Jackson says, "New edition. Can you stand the rain or high five? Never should you have the never never should have you let go. Choose." I mean, why are you gonna make me choose between new edition and high five? But if I'm gonna choose, of course it's gonna be a new edition. New edition is timeless. Where high five, they can't even perform anymore. I think one of them died or was in jail or something like that. And the kid that was the lead singer, as soon as he went through puberty, he lost his voice. Like he had to go back through vocal training or something like that after he went through puberty because he no longer had that high pitched voice that made them a hit. But New Edition, Ralph Tresvant can still hit those high notes. New Edition, matter of fact, New Edition was the the such the epitome of of boy bands that pretty much every boy band has been modeled after New Edition or Menudo. Most people don't remember Menudo, but yeah, pretty much all the boy bands from the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, including all those little K-pop groups, basically are modeled after New Edition. So of course it's New Edition. No, that's without a question. Charles says, "How do I know this? I've been there." He said, "I knew the people who built their own homes on family land that I no longer that I no longer that I know no longer have the right to build on it." Yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah, when it comes to like property, that's why I'm not even trying to own property in America. My wife and I have property in overseas. Not I've I've pretty much like have lost any interest in owning anything here in America. I want to own things. I'm just going to do it overseas. I don't have any vested interest in like and don't get me wrong. I'm red and white and blue through and through. I love America, but until the until until shit gets fixed here, I have no vested interest in owning things here and being, have I don't I don't feel any vested stake in this country when it comes to like business or the future or anything like that. Like all of that for me is overseas. And I hate to say that as someone who, I do feel rather patriotic, right? But I hold I just I feel no stake in the game here anymore. So, and that's largely the government's fault. Justo says Gen X is the last generation before social media BS. Yeah, yeah, that's true. The funny thing is, like, so with Zennials specifically, which is like a micro generation that bridges the gap between Generation X and Millennials. So us Zennials, like again, people born from 1977 to 1983, we had an analog childhood with a digital adulthood. So we live in the age before, you had the web and social media and smart tech and all that sort of stuff. But then as adults, we quickly were able to gravitate to the using social media and hide the more smart tech things and internet and all that. And interestingly enough, though, we did actually have internet in the 80s. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, we had stuff like AOL and CompuServe and all that, but there wasn't the World Wide Web back then because the World Wide Web again was created by CERN for their for their laboratories and between France and Switzerland. Um, they had developed that, and then it became available for commercial use back in like 93, 94. Yeah, I believe 93 was when the World Wide Web was released for commercial usage. But the internet has existed since the 60s when it was first developed by DARPA. So pretty much the internet was created by the army. And email was created in the 70s. So we did have internet in the 80s, but pretty much the only people using the internet, well, one probably had money, and and two were nerdy because the only thing you could really do on it back then was use like there was pretty much just Usenet groups, like the little Usenet groups, like the online discussion boards. And these Usenet groups are still up today, by the way. But it was like the Usenet groups and email. That's pretty much it. Like there was not pretty much anything else you could do on the internet back then because the World Wide Web didn't exist yet until '93. Cell phones also existed back then too, but at that time, the your cell phone was about the size of this pillow. You sitting there like, yo, what's up? Yeah, I'm about yeah, what's going on? Yeah, I'm about to we about to leave now. All right, I'll talk to you later. It was either this or you had the mobile phone. So you've had the so you've had the cell phone that was like this size, holding it to your ear, just giving yourself brain cancer, or or you had the or you had the mobile phone, big ass brick. Like my father, I remember he had his mobile phone back in the early '90s in the car, so he thought he was stunting. That I ain't gonna lie, that was in the '90s. That was the shit. If you had a mobile phone, the you had the mobile phone in your car. That was the shit back in like the late '80s, early '90s. No, no, no. Yeah, that started in the early '80s. No, that was around So you had the car phones in like in the early '80s, or like I said, you had to walk, or if you had the walk around cell phone, that shit was like this big. So they're like, yeah, all right, yeah, we going to the mall. Yeah, I'll see you later. All right, hold on, let me put up my phone. I'm about to. I think I'm getting a headache. So- but, but yeah, we had cell phones. We had internet, but we didn't have World Wide Web. There was no smart technology. Um, there was no social media. Okay. Uh, yeah, it was none of the fun things or toxic things, depending on how you look at it back then. Charles says on my own land. Then the boomer say, I don't know what to tell you, old IMFers. You built your house yourself, and now I can't do that. Right. Yeah. And then on top of that, some of them inherited, their property from previous generations that were able to gain land during the westward expansion, right? Because even as late as the early 20th century, there's people still, you know, finding their way going west and, make but getting some cheap property. Even today, it's 2026, and most of the Northwest, that's all the flyover states. Those states are largely empty. You're more likely to see a freaking buffalo than a person in some of those parts of the Northwest. Should you might see Sasquatch. Just as in the same breath, a boomer will say them good old days. Then say, by the way, we had it harder. Are they effing brain dead, dude? They if it comes as any consolation, even as young people, fucking boomers were retarded. Like, mind you, boomers were the hippie generation. Like, people might think that was Gen X. No, the hippies, that was the boomer generation. These were the whole free love people, the ones that spread AIDS, that wore long hair and didn't bathe because they thought that was making themselves more like Native Americans. Meanwhile, Native Americans bathe and they don't stink. I have not met a stinky Native American. I mean, I haven't met that many Native Americans, but none of them that I met have stunk. I've met some stinky black people. I've met some stinky white people. I've never met any uh, stinky natives. Just saying. So they were the hippies getting on people's nerves back in the '60s. And like I said, they and the silent generation came up on an economic boom that we have never seen since in the '50s. And they had all these government entitlements coming to them. Whether you had the GI Bill, you had the creation of what's the housing the I think I should know this because I deal with this for work. Sorry, the not the VI, not I mean not the VA housing thing. The I forgot. It'll come back to me. But they had so many government entitlements back then, and then once they became adults, they voted to have these things removed so that Gen X and millennials can't get it, and then say, "Oh, you guys just don't want to work anymore." Mind you, that is the oldest, dumbest thing people have ever said. Literally, people you look like you can look at old newspaper clips going all the way back to the 1800s, and literally people have been saying that since the 1800s. Oh, these people just don't want to work anymore. So they're not even original in their criticisms. They're but their criticism stems from something from a critique from 200 years ago. 200 years ago. Talking about, oh, these guys just don't want to work anymore. That is literally a criticism of every younger generation in America since the 1800s. Literally. You can look it up if you don't believe me, or you can Google it when you can Google it, or you can check Chat GPT or Grok or whatever AI is of your choice, and it will confirm that what I said is correct. That the whole these young people just don't want to work anymore has been a critique labeled at younger people since the 1800s, maybe even the 1700s. But yeah, they enjoyed enormous entitlements and government benefits, took them away from the younger generation, and then said, why can't you guys do what we did? We did it and we had it way harder than you did. No, they didn't. Justo says Agenda 2030 is a real thing. People won't own anything and expect to be happy. Yeah, so they're pushing everything into a gig economy. So everything you have is going to be something that's leased by someone else. You don't buy a car, you do Uber. You don't You don't buy food and or raise your own crops or your own animals anymore. You just door dash it. You don't own a home. You just Airbnb or rent. Uh, you don't have pensions. You just have uh, what do you call it? The what is those funds? I forgot. But anyway, yeah, I mean everything is just gonna be like you don't own anything anymore. This is why I go out of my way to buy stuff like physical copy, like so. My favorite movies. I don't download movies. I don't download digital movies. If I actually like a movie, I go out and buy the DVD. Some people are now Gen Z are actually returning to 80s low tech gadgets. They are buying VHS tapes. They are buying vinyl records, um, and other things, Walkmans, stuff like that. I see them returning to the 80s and 90s low tech sort of gadgetry. Look, if you like something, buy it, and that pretty much goes for everything. If you like a favorite movie and music, buy a hard copy of it so you always have it, not be dependent on a streaming app or service. If you like driving, buy your own car so you can have it. If you enjoy living someplace, buy a home. Don't just rent for the rest of your life if you can afford it. Because ironically, a mortgage is cheaper than rent. However, that comes with a caveat because a house can be a money pit, as can a car. So caveat emptor, buyer beware. Um, if you want to know something, get a degree in it. Don't just rely on you know using AI. Plus, you want to have those skills to make you marketable in the labor market. On top of that, if you do go to college, actually study. Don't download those little study apps to do all the work for you. Otherwise, you'll never actually learn the information which you may actually need. Kevin Calvin Jackson's Prince, The Beautiful Ones, or Michael Jackson, Lady in My Life. Choose one. Um, Beautiful Ones. I'm gonna say Prince because I like that Michael Jackson song, but that's not like my favorite one. Kayla, what's up? Tracy's. I wonder how Roblox is doing with these effing people arguing. I'm literally arguing too. Are you currently playing it? I don't, because you had me lost for a minute because what you were saying didn't really track. So I'm guessing that you're actually playing this in real time as you're talking about it because I don't get what I didn't get some of the stuff you were saying about Roblox earlier. So I'm guessing you were playing it in real time. Juice Stove says it's literally going to be a small minority of people hoarding all the wealth currently in the future, which is crazy. What you mean in the future? That's what's literally going on now. That's literally what's going on now. We haven't seen this much. Look, we have not seen this much economic stratification since the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age was in the 1920s. Like, think of the Great Gatsby, right? Like, right before the Great Depression was the Gilded Age. And that was when America was like the most economically stratified till this present day with extreme economic inequality. And I'm not some bleeding blue progressive Bernie Sanders type person saying, get rid of all income inequality. No, I mean, there's always going to be income inequality. But there, there gets a point where too much income inequality be, becomes unstable for a healthy nation. So I know Thomas Sowell has often lofted a criticism when he says when people say there's too much income inequality, he kind of glibly says, "Well, how much income inequality is good?" And I get what Thomas Sowell is saying, but I disagree with him there because look, too much in there pace what he thinks. There is a such thing as too much income inequality because at a certain tipping point, it becomes it makes a nation unstable. So there is a there's a cutoff there. Charles says the government gave out 100 acres for a penny to get people to move west. They just got it handed to them. Same with the cheese farmers. It was handed to them for the cheese nobody needed. Yeah. Yeah. So he's talking about the westward expansion during the you know, during the, I guess, the mid to late 1800s because of our manifest destiny, which is kind of talked about today. When people talk about the Trump administration's apparent Trump manifest destiny to spread American hegemony throughout uh, throughout the Americas, beyond just the continental U.S. into like places like Greenland and Canada and Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Cuba. So he says 40% of this country is literally on daily life sustainers. They are 20, 30 years past expiration date. Their mouths hang open as far as their jaw can stretch, won't die. Yeah. So the other thing is, and a friend of mine, we were literally just talking about this in a private conversation earlier, is that problem with the economy is that the baby boomers are still hoarding positions that could go to young workers. A lot of them are just holding on to these jobs to sustain their privileged lifestyle. It's like they're not moving up or advancing to to open up these positions so that younger people can get into them. Instead, they're holding on to these positions to maintain their lifestyle. And I get it; everyone has to feed themselves and whatever. But it's like either shit or get off the pot. Like either advance to the next level of your career or fucking retire. You're hoarding. I told him, I said you'll we're gonna see like an economic boom when most of the boomers leave the labor market because then both Gen X and millennials. The sad thing is Gen X are going to be approaching being elderly by the time the fucking baby boomers leave the labor market, but they will be the next up, as will millennials for those for these coveted positions, both in private and in public uh, positions. But yeah, a lot of boomers are hoarding lofty positions in the labor market when at this stage in their life they should either be retiring or going on to like executive positions. Charles says this isn't medicine, it's necrochemistry. He said medicine's to save a life, not sustain 10 years past dead people. Understand what I'm saying? I get what you're saying, but to be fair, once we get to that stage of life, we're not gonna want people to say you just need to croak already. I don't that and that's not my point either. My point is that my point is an economic one. It's like, look, you got like people in certain like government positions, like they've held the same position for like 10, 20 years. It's like either advance to the next stage of your career or or leave that position so that people under you can move up. And you can only do that in places like government because once you get those tenured those little tenured positions in government, it's like you damn near have to shoot someone before you lose that job. And that's why people hated Doge so much because it started it, they started treating government workers the way private like people have to do in the private industry. People in the private industry can't just um can just smugly hold on to a position and not show any effort, like show any fruits of labor from being in that position for so long, like you can in the federal government. So Doge was like, yeah, we got a lot of like bloated bureaucracy that we could cut, and it would save the nation literally billions of dollars, maybe even trillions. So I was all for that. They bungled it quite a bit, but the effort was in the right place. I wish they went further. Charles says you can quote unquote buy whatever you want. It will be seized. Period. You will own nothing. Well, I don't think we're going to get to that totalitarian state. I think I think that's sort of fear mongering. What I do think is a lot of what I do think is that only the elite will be able to afford to own things, and the majority of people will be in a constant state of leasing and renting, or doing stuff in the gig economy. The gig economy is probably going to grow unless people will own things, but it's not going to be they're going to seize your stuff and you're not going to be able to own your stuff. It's going to be a privilege of the elite to own things. And when I'm and one of the things also meant when I say own things, if you want it, is also a spouse. A marriage is sort of like that. Marriage is sort of like a legal contract that you have proprietary rights over that person in which in the relationship. So if you want to own things, you want to own your you want to own your spouse, you get married. If you want to own a home, you buy a house. You want to own your own ride, you get a car. You want to own your own media, you'll buy physical copies of it. If you want to make your own food, you'll buy stuff at the grocery instead of ordering through DoorDash and Grubhub or Uber Eats. um, but yeah, but like I said, that includes marriage too, because marriage is basically your legal, the legal process of having proprietary rights over another person, namely your partner, and they have proprietary rights over you, which are equivalent. So, Charles says, "What is Caesar's will be rendered back to Caesar. You own nothing, and what you own before will be seized." Like I say, I think that's a little bit of fear mongering. I don't think it's going to get to that point. You're talking about a complete totalitarian state, um, which goes like talking about the USSR type situation or North Korea. I don't think the U.S. is going to veer that far left. Even though we do have people like Mandani in office, I don't think we're going to veer off and become like just straight up communists. Jew says AI replacing jobs is another fear for the future. So that's another fear mongering. So AI is going to replace a lot of the menial jobs. So it is going to replace a lot of jobs, but it's going to replace the menial stuff. It's not going to like replace like people who. It's not going to be like replacing doctors, lawyers, engineers, nurses, accountants, um, musicians, athletes, actors, stuff like that. It's going to replace menial jobs, like things that can already be run through AI, like doing you know doing tedious research, like the way like a paralegal, like something like a paralegal, that's probably going to be replaced. Being a truck driver, that's going to be replaced. Um, Taking a person's order at McDonald's, that's going to be replaced. Um, Cashiers, that was going to be replaced. Stuff like that. These are the things going to be replaced by AI. But as AI comes, we'll have jobs working with AI that's going to also be created as well. Every time a new technology is created, uh, there are other jobs to come along with it. Another thing that's going to be replaces needing to know coding. Remember, all 20 years ago, you better learn how to code. Better learn how to code. Man, fuck learning how to code. Like that will be replaced by AI. You don't need to learn how to code anymore. The fucking ChatGPT does it for you. Not that I have anything against learning coding, but you don't need to do it. Alien says, "Why do you look like Kenny Smith and Stephen A. Smith had a baby? I don't know. Why did your mother bend over while dick there in the ass and nutted in her mouth, and then she turned around and give you a kiss goodnight?" Anywho, so what time is it? Getting close to that time. It's not yet an hour. I couldn't set my goals. Maybe YouTube is punishing me because I couldn't set my gift goals. I wanted to set my gift goals for today. Either that or when I update it, it's no longer available. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah. Uh. Anywho, again, you shouldn't try to crack jokes against someone from Gen X. I'm gonna roast your ass every time anytime some little retarded autistic Gen Z troll on here tries me, I'm gonna fry your ass. Ms. Contrarian says, I remember a boss from work said people won't be replaced by AI. They will be replaced by people who use AI. Exactly. Yeah, I think your boss is right. He said, I think that's a good one right there. So people won't be replaced by AI. They will be replaced by people who use AI. Yeah, like I said, like we already see stuff in the making. Like we already see that a lot of these people who drive Uber and Lyft or Grab, if you're overseas, taxis, they're going to be replaced by by uh, by automated cars, like in Total Recall. And then the Total Recall taxi is going to blow up on you if you don't pay them. I'm joking, but no, Mrs. Contrarian gets it because I made her watch Total Recall with me. But yeah, look, we're gonna have driverless cars. We're gonna have automated cashiers. We already see that, like in McDonald's. You don't even have to deal with people. Like you can either order your food on the app, or when you come into the McDonald's, you can just order on the automated menu. And a lot of people are going to do it because they've already done studies and show that the automated menu gets your order more correct than the people do. Or what it's also doing is remote cashiering, because this was something I was telling Mrs. Contrarian about, was that uh, a lot of these jobs are offshoring their cashiers overseas to places like the Philippines, because one, it's cheaper, and two, is they don't have to deal with less messy human to human interactions when you have a remote cashiering. Like there's places in that are trying this out, like in New York City and other places. Um, look at when you go to the supermarket, most of the cashier lanes are now self self, and I never go to the self checkout. I go to a real person to check me out. I don't want to, because I don't know why people are stupid. No, well, I don't want to insult any of you if you're watching. You prefer self checkout. Self checkout is a scam. The reason it's a scam is you're doing your own work and you're not getting paid for it. That is literally their job, to to ring your items up and to bag it for you. That was their job. Matter of fact, and I'm not trying to sound like an old head, but I remember when it was both a cashier and a bagger. Remember that? It was a separate cashier and a bagger. You had a cashier ring all your items up, and then there was a bagger right behind them, pause, that would bag your stuff up for you. And then, in some places, you even had people open and close the doors for you as you left, and if you entered and left the supermarket. These things, but when you had automated doors, you no longer have people opening the door for you when you come into a supermarket or you're leaving a supermarket. With the fact that you have to bring your own tote bags and bag up your own stuff, there's no longer a bagger. And now with the self checkout, there's often not even a cashier. You just have people who wait around the self checkout machines when they mess up. Meanwhile, people are stealing shit left and right through through self checkout, so they're actually, I mean, they're hurting themselves with that shit. They shop. I remember the Shoppers Food Warehouse near my alma mater. It closed down because people started hating the self checkout. So whenever I'm at the supermarket, I avoid the self checkout. I go to the actual cashier. DJ says they don't use plastic bags anymore. No, I get that, but it's also, I mean, they're not doing it for they're not doing it to be green. They're doing it because it's a cost cutting measure. They're not, if you really think these supermarkets, these the corporations that own these supermarkets care about the environment, you're sorely mistaken. They're doing it. Look, it does help the environment for people to use tote bags over plastic bags, but that's not why they're doing it. It's a cost cutting measure, which is smart. The best way to, you know, the usually the best way to help the environment or to help social welfare is through um market based solutions. Market based solutions for market based problems. So yeah. But yeah, like I said, we used to have baggers, the cashiers, we used to have the people who were the greeters who would open the door for you and greet you as you walked into the store. Now you have people at the door, but they're pretty much just checking to make sure you didn't steal anything. Not at the supermarket, but like at Walmart or Target, you'll have now you only people, instead of being greeted or people saying, have a great day. Now you have security waiting at the door to check your receipt and look in your bag to make sure you're not stealing anything. Yeah, that makes a person feel welcome. But I guess it's either that or they just close out the store in ratchet neighborhoods. So there's like Thomas Sowell said, there's no solutions. There are only trade offs. So you can either deal with you can either deal with a Walmart in a much needed area um, of a community that treats its customers like quasi criminals, or you can just close down a Walmart and not have it there, and then the community suffer as a result of not having that, a store that provides those resources. So then people have to drive farther out to find a big box store like Walmart or Target or Lowe's or whatever. Justo says Walmart's near where I'm at. Yeah, I mean, most people have a Walmart that's probably like 10, 15 minutes away from them because Walmart has a stated mission, has a mission statement to basically drive out the local the local economy so that the community becomes dependent on them. Now, they are probably cheaper than, buying stuff at the local mom and pop stores. but a local economy is healthier for the community than everything being derived on Walmart. So cheaper prices, but you destroy the local economy, or you have a local economy, but you pay slightly more for the things that you need. Again, there's no when it comes to economics and most other things, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. So, um, but but where was I getting? So yeah, talking about AI. Yeah, so like AI is not gonna like cause this cataclysm in the economy where no one will have jobs anymore and only Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg will have money and everyone else will be dependent on them for scraps of food. No, what's going to happen is it's just going to change the job landscape as other technology has changed the landscape. So, Justo says, "How long until we see driverless cars everywhere?" My guess, a few decades. I mean, we already have them. They're just not exactly reliable yet. I think within 10 years they're gonna get it. They're gonna get it right. I give it 10 years. I give it about a 10 to 12 years. I don't think it's gonna take another 20 years because the technology has been around for the past 20 years, but it just is now when we have better systems of AI that we can train these driverless cars to be more precise and more safe for you know for transporting people. And like I said, when it happens, it's going to put taxi drivers out of business, and it's going to put the Uber and Lyft drivers out of business, and it's going to put the truck drivers out of business. This is why I keep telling people, stop acting like the CDL is like the master's degree of the ghetto. Like all these people coming out of jail and prison or that never amounted to anything, and job wise, suddenly wanted to get their CDL and be like, oh, I got my CDL now, I'm gonna make a lot of money. Truck driving hasn't been a pathway to the middle class since the 80s because it did used to be such, and then they changed that they changed the market in the trucking industry. But the trucking industry, yeah, back in the 70s and 80s, that was like a that was like a pathway into the middle class. Not anymore. And that's going to be the first thing that's automated because think about how much money these companies could save if they don't have to employ actual people to drive these trucks. On top of that, it's going to be more efficient because these trucks don't have to rest. They don't have to stop to rest. I guess that's also going to put the prostitutes out of business too, because you got all these prostitutes that hang around truck stops, which are called what they call them, lounge lizards or whatever you call those women. Those are some of the ugliest prostitutes I've ever seen in my life. But I guess because these guys are so hard up on the road, like literally hard up on the road, like I guess they'll smash someone who looks like Grace Jones. Lot lizards. That's it. Thank you. I always get that messed up every time. I saw some lot lizards for real. My uncle used to drive trucks. He let me come with him to the drop off point, and so we dropped off this truck, and then there was these women smiling at me and looking at my uncle, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "I'm fine." They were so ugly, and after after we got away from them, my uncle was like, "I wouldn't even fuck them with your dick." So hey, I don't blame you. Those are some ugly bitches. God damn, they look like. Did you ever? I don't know. Well, I'm dating myself, but if you ever saw the TV show V back in the '80s, they look like when the aliens like pulled off their skin to reveal that they were like these reptilian aliens. That's what those bitches look like. I see why they call them lot lizards because god damn they were ugly. They look like aliens or some shit. Ugh. Those are the ugliest prostitutes I've ever seen. The best looking prostitutes in Southeast Asia. and in Colombia. But anyway, whatever. But yeah, so the whole trucking industry. I mean, all the all the auxiliary uh, jobs that thrive off the trucking industry are going to crumble once they make driverless trucks, because you won't have the people driving them, which means you won't have the truck stops to offer food to these people, and you're not going to have the prostitutes, the lot lizards there to offer them, physical comfort while on the road. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. That's probably going to halt the spread of AIDS, but whatever. but, but yeah, uh, let me. But yeah, to be about, but yeah, that's going to suffer. Like I said, most of these sales associate jobs are going to be automated in the food industry, and in grocery stores, and even probably like the little mall boutiques. A lot of that stuff's being automated too. Um, so yeah, a lot of so like I said, it's going to be a lot of the menial stuff that's going to be automated. The stuff where you still got to deal with people are still going to be around. If you deal with people, your job is probably secure. If you're in a job where you're already pushing buttons, beware. If you're doing stuff like if you're doing something very tedious, like working on an assembly line, and yes, people still working on an assembly line, like the Amazon warehouses, stuff like that. If you're doing something very tedious, like working in an assembly line, or uh, pulling up research for professors or economists or lawyers, stuff like that, that shit's going to be automated too. So that's all I'm gonna say about the AI thing. I think we talked about that way too long. But all that's to say that I think Charles might be worrying a little bit too much that we're all not going to own stuff. I think people will own stuff less just because it will be a privilege of the elite to own things and to get married and to own homes. But that's already the case now. Like if you're looking at things now, we're already seeing that it's mostly the elite that are married, they own homes, they can invest in the stock market, they own physical things. So um, I think it'll just become more pronounced in the next few decades. But there might be a backlash to that. We'll see. It's hard being like trying to be too hard nosed on what's to come in the future, because there are so many, when it comes to human behavior, there's so many variables that things can go, things can, when it was in social science, um, predictability is not of it's not a given. Social research is poor in predictive success. I'll put it that way. So I don't know. We can end that here unless people got other comments or questions. I mean, it's only two of us, and I think that's a friend of mine and my wife. So um, I don't know. What can we leave it there, folks? Okay, Sarah, Sarah. All right, I think we're gonna leave it there. Mrs. Contrarian, are you still here? I know you packing up stuff. She's packing for her little weekend getaway. Meanwhile, I'm stuck here in the cold ass Baltimore with this in this storm that hasn't, you know, the storm that hit 4 weeks ago, and we're still dealing with the aftermath 4 weeks later. And I gotta remember to put out the recycling. So yeah, I'm gonna call it here. Um, Unless someone has any other comments or questions. And even if you do, if you know, if I cut you off before you were able to get to your question or comment, you can always leave it in the comment section and keep things going there. But looks like that is it. So thanks everybody. Talk to you later. Peace. I'm out.